So for class today, we're going to continue our study with the sugar maple tree. And I'm going to show you what we're going to paint. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, I can see you're saying yes. So here we go. So the first layer of that purple is not extremely dark, but it actually indicates very well the shape of the tree. Then I paint the sky around it, and maybe the purple is still wet, but I just paint on top. And then with a second layer of the purple, I'm going to do a second layer and paint around the tree hole, the sky holes, then add a little green grass at the bottom. So that's what we're going to do today. And before we actually start, we're going to do this in steps. Before we do this, I wanted to show you the color of the snow. I'll put this here. So I went to the Lowell Cemetery this week, and I took this photo of this tree. This little, it's like a little shrub, or is it a cedar? I think it is. Anyway, and on it is the snow, and you can tell how the light comes from the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, the snow is in the shadow. And I mean, visually, it's easy to see that this snow here on the right-hand side is darker, but I wanted to show you by capturing the light side of the snow, painting on this side, just to show you how much of a difference there is between this side and this side. Look at the difference in the white, because we know snow is all white. Well, it's this white. This white, I got the white from this side, and I just went and did this on this side just to show you the difference. So without this, we can tell, well, we think maybe this is on the left-hand side is a 1, and maybe on the right-hand side, maybe it's a 2 or 3. When in fact, when I go like this, you could see there's a big contrast between the snow in the shadow, and this is the tone of the snow on the left in the sun. So if I could do the reverse, so let's say I get the color of the snow on this side, and I go and paint it here. Look at the difference in tone. So this shadowy side of the snow is very dark compared to the white side. Now, it's still not as dark as the background. So we have the lit side of the snow is the lightest light, and the shadowy side of the snow is the mid-tone, which is pretty much in between the white of the snow and the dark of the background. So I wanted to show you this, and I also wanted to show you, I took a photo of the sugar maple tree. So I wanted to show you how big a sugar maple tree can get. So see how big it is? And this is my friend who I was walking with. See how small she is? So a sugar maple tree can grow really, really tall. And you can still see with the branches that we see how it has a pear shape. So wider here at the bottom and goes to a skinnier head, and then goes the same way on the other side, although some branches may have broken down or broken. And I also took a photo of this other sugar maple tree to show you how when the leaves are in the tree here at the bottom, because at the top they're all gone, but here at the bottom you can see it gets very, very thick with leaves. So that's why when painting leaves of a sugar maple tree, it's nice to group them together, and they just add a little bit of shadow here and there. And there's up above, when the trees are, when it's in full bloom, then you can see some sky holes, but not that many. And I also wanted to show you, so this is the birch look at all these nice patterns that we see in the birch. This could be used for the start of in abstract painting. But I wanted to show you how the birch is very rarely all very, it's not a very straight line on either side. When we paint it very small, it's okay to make it straight. But if you're going to do a close-up of the birch and the tree trunk, look how, it's all, there are all these little mishaps and little pieces of the birch that come off. So it's kind of interesting. Now, a couple more things that I wanted to show you is see how this house is beautiful. I think it could be a nice subject matter because it's got all these nice straight lines and measuring. Would you like that, Leslie? Go like this if you would, and go like this if you don't. Oh, she's up for the, we're still recording this, Pam. She's up for the challenge. Actually, the reason why I took a photo of this is I wanted to show you how the trees have been painted here on this side. See, this is the trees in the winter, and it's got a little snow on the branches on the top, but we only see the tree trunk at the bottom that's very dark, but as it goes higher and higher, then all these little tree branches, they are a lot lighter in color, so it becomes a very much lighter gray. Of course, at the tip, you can imagine that there's some snow, but there's not that much snow. So I wanted to share that with you. And then one last one that I wanted to share with you. So this is not it's not a painting, it's an actual photo. And the reason that I wanted to show you this is all this snow on the trees and the shrubs in the front and the snow on the background trees. Look at the colors. So this grouping of little shrubs here in the front with the snow in them, it's closer to the viewer, it's whiter, but it's also a much warmer white. Then what we see in the background, look how blue this is. So when we see things much further away in the distance, it's easy to see in this photo how much cooler the colors become. And because they're cooler, they go further away, as well as another reason for our eye to think that it's further away is because the branches are a lot smaller and it's just further away. So all things that are good to observe when you're walking around in a park, even in the city and looking at the trees. Just try to see for yourself what you see. Do you see it cooler? Do you see it lighter? And how come that one appears to be further away than this other one? So just develop your own sense of observation. When you prepare your paintings that will be hung in a museum one day, you'll be happy you have done this development. Okay. I like to make some jokes. Now this last one here is a close-up of the branches. And you can tell here very clearly how when we see the snow in the sunlight, it's so much darker than the snow in the shadow. So when painting snow and painting it in the shadow, remember it's not just a little grayer, it's a lot grayer, it's cooler than the snow that appears in the light. All right, so enough with this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oops. So today's class, last week we did this, and it was a lot of fun for me anyway. And today we are going to do this. When painting this, the first step that we are going to do is we're going to paint something like this, but in a different approach, using a different method than we did last week. So last week, first we put the purple And then on top of the purple, we put all of the powder blue on either side, and we scratched out the very skinny branches. Then with more purple, then we painted on top some additional, a little wider branches. So to do this today, what we're going to do is first we're going to actually paint on the white canvas with the deep purple. We're going to paint a bare tree. So that will be another approach, another method that you guys, will practice to paint the bare tree. If this method doesn't work for you guys, then maybe this method will work. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to paint the bare tree here on white canvas. Once we've done that, then we will paint on top our actual tree with leaves. So if it doesn't really come out, no big deal. If it comes out and you absolutely love the way it came out, then you could leave it alone and do your tree with leaf painting on a different canvas. But what I want us to do is take one canvas, and like last week, so my canvas is a little bit bigger than you, so I can do a demonstration, but either use an acrylic paper sheet 9x12, or you can use a canvas board like this if you have one, or a stretch canvas. It's up to you. And separate it, but not necessarily in half. So make one side a little bit bigger than the other side, like we did last week. Or maybe we didn't do this, but anyway. And this side, we're going to do a little bit of practicing. And on this side, we're going to do our actual painting. So if you don't have your canvas with you right now, is the time to go and get it and go and get your paint in water. So we're going to paint this. And in preparation for it, I ask you to prepare your surface on which you're going to paint, and with a piece of tape, you can separate it. One side will be, I suggest one side could be a little bit bigger, where we're going to actually paint our tree. You don't have to have the line here. It's just a mistake that I did. And then a smaller size, a smaller area where we're going to play. And by playing, I mean practice our twigs. So we had practiced the twigs by doing the scratching last week. Well, we're going to practice the twigs in a different way this week. So what we want to practice is try and do all these little very skinny branches. So to do this practice, this is what I suggest you do. First, prepare a good amount of your purple. To prepare the purple, I mean, you all have your color wheel, but just as a reminder, so use some ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and you can mix it all together. If you have medium for this part, see, I don't have enough. I seem to not have enough of the blue. So if I use my little test strip, I think my my purple is a little bit, it's a little bit too magenta. Whoops. It's a little bit too magenta-ish. So I'm going to add even more blue in this. Okay. And if you, so if you have medium, use a little bit of medium in here. And this alizarin crimson that I have is very strong. So you can use just just a little bit. So I'm just going to put one drop just to make it a little bit more fluid. There. And I'm sorry to say this, Michelle, but making your paint a little bit more watery for this exercise will make it a little easier. But I don't recommend that you put the water in the whole thing. So once your purple is ready. Mine is ready right here. I go like this, you'll see. Like this, you'll see better. Yes. So this is my purple. Now in this exercise on this side, that's your chance to try your different brushes. To do twigs, I like to use a flat brush like this, you know. So that's what I use first. But then I will also demonstrate with a round brush like this. That could also be used. You can also use a bigger brush that has a more fine tip, like this one, for example. And I like to use my filbert, but my filbert is so old that now it's all thick. But yeah, I like when I can use the very tip of this. When I get it wet, it gets pretty skinny. So anyway, I'm going to start with the flat. And the first thing I do is I put it in the water. And I use just a little bit of, oops, like this. Let's see. Right here. This will be good. So I use a little bit of my purple over here, but it has to be a watery purple. And it's a nice purple that I have. So you can tell here the color. So using this and using this brush that I'm hoping will do what I want, I'm going to do some practice here. So we're going to practice in different ways. First, we're going to practice going down. So you can see my twigs are really thick. They're way too thick. So this brush may not be the right brush for it. So I'm going to put it down and use a different one. Maybe that was the wrong brush that I used. I'm going to try this one. It's another flat brush that I have. So put it in the paint. Make sure I have enough paint on my brush. And now I'm going to go like this. Yes. So we're going to practice different ways. So see, I'm painting from the top to the bottom. See how much skinnier these are? So I can't blame it on me. I can blame it on the brush. Now I went to practice this. So I'm doing the demonstration. You don't have to rush and do it at the same time. You can watch a demonstration. I'll give you time to do this. So for this grouping, I went from up, down. Now, how about if I try going up? It's a different approach. So try to make them straight if you can. If you think of branches, you can think of, doing little angles, but that's harder if you want to do them skinny. Now, the next step will be to do them sideways. So let's say I go like this, from right to left. Now that's working out pretty good. And then from left to right, I can tell you that doing this is extremely difficult. And I've practiced this a lot, like a guitar player or a singer will practice, their song many times. That's how I can get with skinny lines here. So this is, these are ways that you can practice. Now, just to show you, I'm going to use now my round big brush. And I suggest that you try your different brushes just to see which you prefer for yourself. Some people prefer the round one. Some people prefer, a flat one. Some people have their favorite brush that they do almost everything with it. Now with this one, I'm just going to show you how we can practice with, oblique lines. Now it's a little harder with this brush, I find. And having your hand in the air is really dark. It's really hard to do this. But so you can put your hand down and try and do it this way. Eventually, though,
you know, doing it with your hand in the air. Now I'm going from left to right, going up. So these last ones that I did are kind of interesting because they start a little thicker and they go thinner. So branches tend to grow this way. So it's not a bad idea to be able to do this. And as you continue, you know, practice makes it easier and easier. So even if your original ones were like this, maybe they were all like this, keep at it and keep at it. And then the more you do it, then the more you'll figure out maybe this is not the right brush for it. So see, over here it's not working. I'm going to try another brush. So this one's a smaller round brush. I'm going to demonstrate with this one. Not sure it's going to work, but I'm going to try. I'm not sure I've used this one for doing twigs. So remember, using a more of a watery paint will probably help. Also, this one works. See, now I put my little finger as my pivot, to try and have sense of a distance from. So now I've done this like this with this brush. So this brush works. I'm going to also demonstrate with a much bigger brush. So this is a much bigger brush that is flat, but it's a much newer brush. So it should probably work to do some straight little twigs. So make sure that the whole brush is completely covered with paint, watery paint. Sorry, Michelle. And then I'm going to go and try and see if that's going to work. Maybe I could go like this. The more I do it, the more I can. I've never done it with this one. So don't think that I can do the very skinny ones with this brush. Oh, this is getting a little bit better. Oh yeah, look at that. I can do it with this brush too. But it's tougher. It's tougher. So take your time. I'll give you another 10 minutes. Practice those twigs. Because when we do the actual tree, having practiced how to do these twigs will help. And practice them in all sorts of direction. Also, getting to know which brush you like to use the best to do this is a good way for you to get to know your material and know how you can be most successful at doing this. So try and do them as thin as you can, even with a big brush. Oh, they're getting very thin. So anyway, some of them are a little too thick, but some of them have become a little thinner. So I have a variety. And the important thing is to practice them in all sorts of directions. So going up, going down, from right to left, left to right, and also in an oblique way. So from left to right, oblique, and also from left to right, going up. And you know, so in some direction, it's not really working for me. But remember, when you're painting a painting, you can turn your canvas. So therefore, maybe if there's a direction that's not working for you, you can always turn your canvas. But in this exercise, try to keep the canvas in the same direction all the time, because this is just an exercise to practice your lines. You want to find out who you are, what you can do with what brush, and how easy can you make it on yourself. So don't hesitate to practice, practice, practice. So using the rigger brush, which is a brush used to paint rigging, you know, for the artists who paint boats. That's what it was created originally. So this brush is it's got a very long part of the brush from here to here. It's almost like 1 inch long. And it's very skinny, but when you dip it in the paint, it gathers a lot of paint. And the paint has got to be somewhat watery for this to work. This brush can be used in oil, in acrylic, in watercolor. And then when you put it on, you start painting with it. So I'm going to paint like this. And you can paint a very long line with this brush. So let me do it this way here. And you can make it pretty skinny too. So another example, I'm trying to stay here. I could even go like this to make it join. Oops. Anyway, so this is what this brush is for. And when painting the rigging on boats, you want to have the rigging, in one swoop. So that's why this brush is good for this. For this next part, what we're going to paint on here is something similar to this, just the purple portion. We're not going to do the background. We're not going to do the bottom. So we're going to paint this time, instead of painting like we did last week by scratching out on top of the powder blue, we're just going to paint the tree here, the bare tree. Now, remember how the bare tree is a pear shape? So if you want to help yourself, you can draw like a little bit of a pear shape here. Like, let's say this is the bottom of my branches. So you can, you can put like a pear shape like this to help yourself. And this way you'll know where to, end your branches. You're going to paint on top, so it's going to completely disappear. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I just did that just as an example. And then your tree trunk will be here. You do not have to do this, but if it helps to make the branch the right length when you make them, you can do that. Eventually, it will all disappear under the paint. And we're going to paint with the purple color. So having a good amount of purple color to start with is a good idea. I'm just going to use my my small flat brush to do this and start by painting the tree trunk. So when painting the tree trunk, it starts, a certain width at the bottom. And as it goes up, it goes skinnier and skinnier to finish the same width as the skinny branches. So using my purple, I have a little bit of a mishap here. Okay. So using my purple, and I don't like this brush, it's not working. So maybe I should use my favorite brush. It's here. So as you go up with your tree trunk, remember not to make it too thick at the top. So the very top of it should be just a very skinny branch, like a twig. So as you go up and up and up, then make it thinner and thinner and thinner. So it should be. This is not the right brush for it either. Oh my God. Okay, I'm trying with this now. This might be better. Yeah, so it should finish with, a very skinny top. And then remember how our branches for the sugar maple tree, they all grow going up. So branches don't grow sideways, they grow like at a 45-degree angle. So, and some of them are a little bit bigger, but most of them are very skinny. So they all grow that way, in that direction. And now because I drew the pear shape, then, it's easy to know where I need to stop my branch. And the one here at the bottom is just a little bit of something here like this. So that's what we're doing. And if you prefer to watch a demonstration first and paint after, that's fine. I'll give you time to paint your tree afterwards. So making, painting the main branches first. And remember, the branches are usually not symmetrical. Starting with those. And that's why I'm using my big brush. And it'll be one like this here at the bottom. And then I'm going to add the twigs, the twig endings. So I'm going to change brushes to do that. And if I remember correctly, this might have been a good brush for it. So this is your chance to practice painting a bear tree in a different way than before. Before it was like the scratching out. Now you're going to just paint the little twigs one by one. This is a lot of work. And some of the twigs, they actually go from the trunk. Most of the twigs, though, they are on the ending. And they rarely grow out of thin air, so they're usually attached to a main branch. And if you do a boo-boo like I just did there, you can use a clean brush to remove some of the purple. So here, see that this branch end's a little too thick. So I can use a clean brush to remove this branch. Then use a paper towel to dry it, and then I can just paint it again. And if you do it immediately after painting it, then you will be able to completely remove the branch. So now I've removed the branch that was too thick, this branch here, and then I can paint it again. So have some fun and cover the whole thing and practice your twigs. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording and put on display the bear tree photo. So we're going to paint this now. And before we start painting this, I suggest that if you only have a teeny little bit of purple left or no purple left, that you mix a new batch of purple, a deep purple. And also you should mix a batch of your powder blue. So this blue that I have here, I made it with just a mix of white and ultramarine blue. And there's just a teeny bit of ultramarine blue because I wanted to have a very light sky. And to mix my purple, I used the ultramarine blue and the red. And because the red is so strong, I use more blue than red. So I'm going to prepare those colors. And then after I'm done that, I'm going to demonstrate how we're going to do this. And I suggest that you also prepare your colors while I'm preparing mine. This is the example that I painted earlier. When it's time for you to paint, you can either look at this, or I will also share with you guys the photo of the sugar maple tree. So it's a good idea to look at the photo. Basically, what's important is that the shape is like a pear shape, and the tree trunk is in the middle, goes from a certain width and to a very skinny little tip at the top. And also the branches, there's not such a very long tree trunk for a sugar maple tree. And then the edge of the grouping of the leaves is not a very straight line. It's jagged. So here we go, demonstration. using a large brush for this is a good idea. So I'm going to use like one of these. You can use a smaller one if you want, but a big one goes a long way. Well, so I wet my brush, I dip it into my purple that I have prepared, and I'm going to paint this, leaving some sky holes like on the example. And if you left too many sky holes, you can always block them off. If you didn't leave enough of them, you can always create more sky holes with when you paint the sky. And to facilitate painting the tree, we're just using the purple. It's like a silhouette kind of tree study that we're doing. And then once we have become master at doing this, then we can add the element of the direction of the light. So we're doing it by one step at a time. So I'm kind of loosely copying this one, very loosely. And this color of purple, I know it's not as deep and dark as the other one there. But when I do my second coat of purple, that's when it will become just as dark. All right, so I have my tree. That's somewhat similar to this. Now I put this brush in the water, which is my purple brush, and I take another brush this time to paint the sky. Now I'm just taking a clean brush just because I want to go faster. But you can reuse one of the brushes that you already have used, as long as before you start painting with it, you make sure it's clean. So I dip it in the water and I use my nice powder blue color, sky color that I have pre-mixed. I'm realizing it could be even darker than that, but anyway. So with this nice powder blue color, I'm just going to paint the whole sky. As I get close to the branches and the leaves, that's when what happens is, I'm going to show you a little closer. So what happens, because the color is still wet, the two colors will mix together. And so this will make it very interesting. So I'll just go like this. And let's say I make a mistake and I put too much of my powder blue here, let's say like this. I covered too much of it. Well, that's okay, because what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go back with my purple, with my other brush that I have, the purple brush, this one. So now I didn't shake it in the water. I just put it there, and now it's full of water. I'm just going to remove some of the water on my paper, and then I grab more color and I go back here to now add back those branches that I went on top. Now what's going to happen is the two colors are going to mix. It's kind of interesting. And as they mix, then it becomes a lighter purple, and you don't want that. So I'm removing it by wiping it on my paper towel, not in the water, because I want to keep my brush dry rather than wet. And see, now I can paint on top if I want to darken this color again. Now what's going to happen is you might cover an area that you didn't want to. Let's say you wanted to keep this little area here. I wanted to keep it one that you can see. This little area. So I'm going to make this a little closer so you can actually see better. Let's say I did like this area here, but I accidentally covered it with paint. So what I can do is, using my powder blue brush, is I can add the color that I lost. Because it's thick, I can go on top and add it back like this.
So what happens is it contaminates this brush. So once I've done that, I want to remove the contamination part from my brush. So I can just wipe it on the paper towel and see now it's all gone, this contamination. And I can dip here for more of the powder blue and continue painting down here. So the sky color will come down all the way to very close to the bottom of, um, of the tree trunk. And in a straight line, the horizon line will be straight, like so. And then we'll add the grass after. So as you're painting, make sure you don't leave little lights here of canvas. You want to make sure that the powder blue touches the purple and the purple touches the powder blue. So I'm continuing. So I painted this here. And I'm realizing that what I'm doing is I'm removing all these nice little branches that I had. So I'm adding them back. And when I do that, it contaminates this brush that I then clean to add more of my dark color. There, that's good. And there was one up here. So we'll add it back like so. Now, contaminated brush, remove it. Then I can continue painting. Same thing here. There. So this is slightly different from what we have learned so far in the classes. We're just trying something different. So that's why we're doing this. I like to change it up and, give you some new challenges. There's always, you always have the choice to go back to what you know and just paint one color, let it dry, and paint the next color and let it dry. You can always do that if you feel like this is not going to work for you. But I ask you to try this. It's a new thing. Try it. So I'm going to continue painting this, but I invite you to also start your own painting and have some fun. And remember, breathe. And perhaps there is, if there is anyone who has a question, now would be the time. I'm going to pause the recording. So to make the color for this, what I did is I used some of my yellow and I added just a teeny bit of my purple into it. And it gave me some kind of a nice, interesting color that is, it's almost like a greenish gray. You can see it here. So using this color, I'm just painting the bottom part like a gray area. You can also use some of your blue into this to make it more green. So yellow and blue will make it green. And this would give you more of a green color. You just paint this whole thing. And if you want to try to give it some depth, then the bottom part should be a little darker than the top part. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of my purple to put in the bottom part. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so this will give me like a darker kind of a green. So See here, I started putting the purple in my green color. So it gives me a little bit of a depth in, in the bottom part. And that's it. Now, if I were to show you how I did it in my uh, original one, this is what I had gotten. So I mixed the blue and the yellow and gave me deep green. And here at the bottom, I may have added a little bit of my magenta. I mean my purple, sorry.